All right. Yay. Thank you everybody for being here. I am very excited about this. So I'm Amber. Hello. And this is Should You Start Your Own Writing Class? 5 Pros and Cons of Teaching on Your Own Terms. Now, I'm going to be real with you guys. I've been kind of changing this up on the fly because I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I also think people have lots of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these 5 pros and cons. I'm going to share a little bit about my background with this, but then I want to really open this up, ideally for a while, for your questions. So I really don't want you to be shy with your questions. If you have specific questions for me, if you're like, literally, how did you do that? What were the hours of that? What did that look like? Please ask. I'm like I said, put them in the chat right now. I can't see the chat right now until I go off the share, but I will then get to them in just a little bit. And then you can get on the microphone and talk as well. So there's going to be a big chunk where I'm talking at the beginning, but then I really want to hear from you guys and answer your questions and really just be transparent about my own journey with this, so to speak. So yeah, really don't be shy. I just want this to be helpful because I've seen, I don't know, people just getting screwed and or hearing a lot of misinformation. And I just want to like clear it up. And so you can hear from at least one regular human person who's done this and see if this might be something that you want to go into as well. So there we are. Awesome. I did hit record. I always give myself that slide now. And you should have a good idea by the end of this workshop on whether or not you want to start your own course. Like that's my goal, of just you have a more realistic depiction of if this is something you're really interested in. We're going to have lots of questions, and I am going to talk a little bit about a new way to keep working with me that I am trying out. So if you can close your tabs, feel free to get a pen if you want to take notes. You don't have to. I'm going to send this recording afterwards, but I would love your attention for the hour. So a little bit of background on me. I'm Amber Petty. I've been a freelance writer for 7 years, written for the New York Times, Thrillist, a whole bunch of places. Now, I started a business 5 years ago. Also, before that, I was an actress. I did off-Broadway musicals and improv. So I've had an odd career journey, to use the J word again. But I started a business 5 years ago where I was going to start like a voice lessons, a singing for self-care whole thing. And it just 1,000% failed. Also, quick note, I will swear. If you hate swearing, it's totally fine if you want to leave. Try not to do it too much, but it will happen. So I started that business and it completely fucking failed. And it failed for a number of reasons. I didn't like the business as much as I thought I would. I wasn't prepared for how difficult the beginning stages of it would be. I didn't have a very good plan for how it would actually sustainably work anyway. And so I quit. And for a while, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do a business again on my own. I think I'd need help if I did it. Then I worked freelance some more. I worked full-time copywriting, and I had the idea of offering some workshops and trying that out. And then that became my business of writing classes and newsletters and stuff that I have now. So that started 2 years ago, where I started teaching my own freelance writing classes, and I made $110,000 in my first year. And I have included some screenshots because every time I say that, I don't believe it myself. So this is from New Zenler, is the platform where I host my classes. So that was the stats from 2021 total earnings. Anytime you use a payment processor, which you have to use like Stripe or PayPal, they take a certain percentage out of it. So that's why that number is different. And then you can see, this is like you can see this is from yesterday. I didn't make any money. But my total sales for all my classes so far are 212,000. And so that also doesn't include payment plans that are going through and stuff like that. So basically, I'm going to be earning, it looks like, around 125,000 this year, but I also taught 2 fewer classes and had a lot of different experiments. So that's just, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just literally telling you what's up with me, and what can happen. And that's the deal, is this doesn't always happen. I cannot promise you $100,000 from your class. But I have seen other people still make significantly more money doing their own class than teaching somebody else's class. So the first workshop, paid workshop I did, I made about $2,000 for for a single 90-minute workshop. And at that time, I only had 250 people on my email list. So that's obviously not enough to like quit all your jobs and everything, but it's tends to be a lot more than what you make getting paid by somebody else. And I've seen other people. I have a friend who, she started at the same time and has a similar class, and she didn't make the same money as me because she just had different priorities, but she still made, she made $8,000 the very first class she ran. And now she's making like $25,000 for a 10-week course she's offering. So I just want to try to give you a realistic idea of the numbers that, yes, I cannot promise everybody's going to make $100,000, but like it can happen. It also can happen. So that's just an idea of the whole jam. Okay, on to the pros and cons. So what I'm going to do is, go through these a little bit and then open things up for questions. Then I've got a couple extra little tips in here. And then I do really want to hear from you. So I'll quit sharing and I'll get to more questions. So one thing I do want to say is, do not put your shit on Udemy or any of those super low paying platforms. Don't do it. I've heard from a couple people where they're like, oh, I'll make a class, I'll put it on Udemy, and they do most of the marketing for you and stuff. So it'll just kind of sit there and sell. No. Will you make $10 that way? Possibly, but that's going to be about it. Like, it is not easy. They sell stuff for very cheap. They take a cut off of it. A lot of students hardly engage with it, so they don't get much good out of it. And you still have to promote it, but now it's on a platform you don't own where they take a cut, and it requires thousands of people to sign up for you to make any significant money. So don't do it. Don't do it on Skillshare or Udemy. Just, it is not good. It is not good for people that don't already have a huge audience. Even if you have a huge audience, I would say to not use it. This is, of course, just my opinion, but my opinion is correct. No, I really don't like Udemy. Don't do it. The other thing I would like to say is that if you'll kind of look up, online courses, and they're like, it's passive income. You make this, you do that. It is not passive income. It's not. It's not. So even if you set up a course where you have all the videos in advance and the student buys it and you don't have to do anything else, you still have to sell that class. And maybe like none of my income is passive. Maybe 5 years from now, I might have some courses that really truly do sell themselves, but you have to sell it. And that's a chunk of your time. So I just want to dismantle that idea of passive income, because unless you already have a big audience, that is not happening, and that sets you up to be sad. So it's not that. But there are ways to set up your class that can actually make it easier for you, which I'll get into later. Okay, so pros and cons of starting your own class. The number one con is you have to find your own students. When somebody else teaches a class, they do, if you're doing a class for another school, they're typically promoting it, doing most of that and filling it for you. When you do it on your own, you have to find your own students. Tweeting, hey, I've got a class coming up, or putting it on Instagram isn't really enough. Ideally, you would have an email list where people can keep in touch with you and you give your offers, and you are cultivating a warmer crowd of people who then may eventually take your class. So this isn't necessarily like arduous work, but it's just something. It's something else you have to do. So if you've had a class before and you had people say like, hey, I want to take your class, oh, when are you offering it? and then you put out like, hey, email me if you want to take this class, it's on this date, and nobody got back to you, or everybody got back to you of how that date was wrong, that's okay. That happened to me too when I tried to start classes years ago. But so that's why having that email list of people who are like actively a little bit interested in what you have to say or your classes, that gives you a body of people who are going to be more interested once you have something for sale. Now, the pro of this is your students are way better. I taught voice and speech at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I taught improv at UCB, and I've also taught a number of other places. And student-wise, it was just a total crapshoot. I got lots of lovely students. I had then another half of students that would just look at me with hate in their eyes that they had to be there, or were wild people I had to like actually say, if you don't want to listen to me, you have to leave, and stuff like that, which I had to do in an improv class once. So when I've done my own classes, and I'm shocked by this too, I've had no shitty students, truly. I've really had no problematic students. I've had some shitty emails. I've had some people telling me to swear less, or, quit emailing them so much. Or shoot, I had one told me, I hope you become a real man someday. That was an email response I got from a stranger, and I just don't even know what to make of that. So anyway, I get a couple of weird responses, but they aren't from people that pay me. And for the actual 100% of the time, I get students, and the worst student I've ever had is like one who's vaguely annoying sometimes. Like honestly, it's so much better. And the reason for that is because they're taking the class for you. They're not taking it because of the school or because they were told they should take it. They're taking it because what you are offering and how you are offering it is attracting people that are going to be interested in that. And so because they're taking it for you and what the subject is, of course, but you're a big factor, and you're going to then attract people who are into that. So they're already a little bit on board. And when they take the class, they're going to be just such a more enjoyable student to be around. Okay, con 2, you have to convince yourself your ideas aren't dumb. So when you do your own class, there's a lot of fun mind stuff that comes up, like who wants to hear from me, or I'm not qualified to teach that, or I suck at all things. That's a lot of fun, huh? So that stuff comes up. And they love to turn up the heat when you start a class, because we probably all have experienced that with writing, right? And when you do a class, it adds a little extra spice, because now you're putting a dollar amount on what you have to offer. And ooh, does that bring up some real hateful thoughts sometimes? So the good thing is, like, starting classes, it really helps you grow as a person. I know that sounds dumb, but you have to deal with these little issues we all have, and you have to deal with them and face them, which does help you grow. But as you're doing it, sometimes it is unpleasant. And I say this because there are times in life where too much bad stuff is happening. You're too busy. You're just in a place where you don't want to handle having to talk yourself out of these mind games that come up. That's fine. That's not a good time to start a business or teaching your own classes. Then when you're feeling just a little more confident and grounded, then you can absolutely get through all these things. Just know to build in a little more time for dealing with these questions, and try to have some support. Support could be a coach, it could be a friend, it could be another person doing a similar thing. It's just helpful to try to find, you don't have to find a whole group, just somebody to talk to. And that's a thing where if you need to just email me months from now, please do that, because having just a little bit of somebody to talk to about this will help immensely. But another pro is you don't have to listen to anybody else's dumb ideas. If you don't like a student, you can tell them to leave. can kick them out of the class. You don't have to go by a curriculum that you think sucks. You don't have to do, suddenly change up everything because there's a new person in charge. You get to teach what you actually care about and also what you know works. I find working for a lot of other places, they have their kind of old habits in place and they don't necessarily want to change. Whereas like I had to teach voice and speech and I had to teach all these incredibly old-fashioned things that as a person who was actively out there, I knew were completely pointless. And I hated having to do that. With writing classes, hopefully you're not doing anything, so they're not making you do anything so severe, but that stuff that doesn't resonate with you, you don't need to touch. You can only bring the stuff that you know is most helpful to people. And that makes the teaching process feel better and feel much more rewarding. The contrary, you do in your own course, you do have to like teaching. So if you're really, really worried about like those who can't teach, I mean, first of all, a real asshole came up with that. But if that like feels true to you, don't start your own class. If you teach exclusively to make money and just don't really enjoy any parts of the process, don't do your own class. Teach for somebody else. Totally fine. Now, having said this, I don't mean teaching has to be your life's passion, that you go to sleep every night dreaming of what you'll be teaching. Writing probably is already that. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, my heart and soul is devoted to this. It just needs to be something you don't mind talking about a lot, that you think it's fun, and that you like working with people in whatever way you want to do it. But if you're at all like, I don't really like it, take starting a class off your list immediately because it's going to be just too tedious. Now, the pro side of this, though, is you become a better teacher and a better writer. When you get to create your own curriculum, you get to solidify your own thoughts and ideas. You get to add in the things that have worked for you. You get to possibly create new exercises or tools or things for people. It makes you a better teacher, and then it makes you a better communicator in general. And it also helps your writing because sorry, there's a weird fly in the way, as you are writing and helping people write, you kind of have to listen to your own advice, and it helps you kind of see some of the gaps of your own process of writing or where you can improve or what you're really good at and what you should focus on more. So it really does improve your own writing skills in that way. And as courses bring in more income, you get to then be pickier with your writing work. So you don't have to take in as many things you don't want to do and get to have a little more focus on just the things you want to do. Con 4 potentially is starting your own writing class is starting a business. You don't have to get all fancy with it, but it is technically a business and there are some tech things involved. So you do need to be comfortable learning new tech and treating your courses a little bit more like a business. You don't just show up and teach. You have to spend time talking to your audience, finding a new audience, producing things they would want to read or enjoy. You have to learn certain tech things like using Zoom and a website and an email server and where to host your courses. They're not hard. I am not a super tech person and I've done all of this stuff by myself, but you have to be open to it. Or if you know that certain tech things you just hate or you really don't like to do, just know that somebody's going to have to help you with that. So you have to be able to kind of deal with some annoying new stuff to learn and have patience there. It's not necessarily that hard. It's just kind of tedious. So just know that that is a part of it. The Pro 4 is eventually, though, it is less work. So there's a lot more setup, but in the end, you get to do less. So if you are normally teaching every writing class you have live, then you're doing all the same things over and over again live, which can be a lot. And it feels like you kind of have to start from scratch every time. The way I do my class is I have pre-recorded lessons. So all the lessons are already pre-recorded. And then students watch those, they get an assignment that week. And then I have a live coaching call where they can ask questions and do that kind of stuff. So that way they actually get to digest the material and then come live for both accountability and community. But also now that they get a chance to do it, they're going to have questions that are more beneficial to them. So that way I'm not repeating myself 400 times in the lessons. That's already there. When I'm live, I'm just answering questions, which makes it much easier on me. I also give notes through Loom. Loom is an online video. It allows you to just make a little video where you see basically what you see here, where you see yourself in a little circle and then the screen. So I don't workshop stuff live ever because I don't always love being in a class where everyone reads and we all workshop it live. I want to make an exception because I am in Terry Trespicio's Gateless workshops where we do all read stuff live and I love it very much. And that's a separate thing. But when it's an essay class, a fiction class, any of those traditional classes, it takes a lot of time to read through everybody's stuff and talk about it. And I just think you don't need to do that. So instead, students write something, they send it to me, and then I send them a video back with notes. Or you could send them, just notes in a Google Doc, whichever works. But that way it saves a lot of that teaching time. And though, yes, that will be some time where you're giving notes, I do video notes because it's easier for the students to not get sad. When you see a bunch of red notes, you're immediately like, "Gah," about it. So in a video, they get to see, hey, I don't hate you, but here are some notes for your work. And a video is a little bit faster for me to be able to communicate all of that succinctly. So it's a thing where I think it's helpful for the students and also helpful for me. And I get to do those notes in my own time. Now, you could do a class that's just pre-recorded video that doesn't even show your face. It just has slides with voiceover. You could have just text where it's just lessons in text and an assignment. You could do one that has no feedback, or when you do your live calls, maybe you just give feedback there live where you've already read it. You have a doc where all the students can read it on their own time, and you just give notes live during that live time. You could do it that way. There's lots of options. And then you have all of your stuff in place and you're just recycling that over and over and over again. So the setup is a little, it's harder. It takes longer, but then the delivery is so much easier every time after that you do it. So it makes it easier for you to have classes with more students and run your classes more often. Because once it's set up, you just repeat it. Now, con 5 is you have to sell things. You have to sell stuff. Nobody likes to sell. No nice person likes selling shit. And you have to put a price on your course that will probably feel high, but it's what you have to do. So if you can't imagine talking about your class, or not just talking about your class, but just things about writing, the genre you're talking about, types of things your audience, your students would like to know. If you can't imagine talking about that stuff for very long, and I mean talking like writing emails or posts or things like that, if you can't imagine that, then this is going to be bad. This is going to be too hard. So just know it's something you have to talk about a lot. You have to sell it. But also with sales, remember, and I have to remind myself of this all the time, you're not reaching into somebody's pocket and stealing their money. All you're doing is you're saying, hey, you want to write, you're curious about this kind of writing. I happen to know a lot about it and can help you write more and get this done. Okay, here's all the details of what it is and how it might help you. And if you like it, you're going to buy it. If you don't like it, don't buy it. I don't give a shit. Not everybody's going to buy. But the more you think of it instead of like, oh, I'm going to just run down your throat with a million sales emails and ads, and oh, I'm going to be so pressury or whatever. Nope, it's not that. All you're doing is you're illuminating your offer for the people that are already interested in it. So you're just clarifying, being excited about it, telling the details, telling how it could possibly help them. And people will either go, oh, great, thank you so much for turning on that light. Now I noticed it. I want this. Or they'll go, okay, yeah, no thanks. And they move on with their life and everyone is fine. But selling is a part of it. So if that just makes you feel like death, then having your own class would be very hard. But then again, the pro, when you're selling something yourself, you make a lot more money. And even if it is just a one-off workshop, you're going to make more money off of that than with another place. Like my class currently has 70 students in it. Do 70 students turn in things every time or come to every live? No, they don't. They kind of space themselves out. A couple people don't really participate. Some people participate a ton. This is my full-time job now. So how I have it set up, I can handle that many people at once. Now, you don't even have to do it or worry about that, but you could probably set up a class that has 20 people in it and still feels kind of personal, so that's another way it can simply make a little more money in the short term, is that you can serve more people. And again, because I do have the live options and I send the videos and I'm open for questions and things. I have a few students here watching this, but like people don't complain about like, oh, it feels so impersonal or I feel so on my own. Like, not to brag about myself, but I am bragging. Nobody feels that way in my class, so even though it's so large, you can make it still feel personal on how you set it up. So you get to help a lot more students, which leads to them getting more things in the world and the great news of more money for yourself. This was a question I got in an email today that I was thrilled to get, which is why start a class when there are so many others out there? Because I think that comes up big time. There are already so many other classes out there. Why would somebody want yours? That's probably going to come to your mind. And I was very, very worried about that when I started, because of course I was, I was like, oh, there's this and this. And then, so there was a person who was like a very big deal, like an editor. And right at the same time that I was starting my workshops and my classes, that person was also starting workshops of their own. And I went, fuck, who is going to want mine? They are selling it for $15. I'm selling my workshops for like $150. Oh my God, who? And then like they have so many more credentials than me. Why would they want this? But I just went, you know what? That person also has a whole background and money from their work at big publications. I don't. And if I want to be able to spend the time with the students and on these workshops and classes as I want to, I'm going to need to charge more. And that's just what it is. Okay. And I know that what I have to say is going to be different. So I'm going to give it a try. Well, then a year later, so many of those workshops from the other person got canceled. Their newsletters and things were super inconsistent. It's just not built up that much at all. And mine is like going quite strong. And that's not because that other person sucks or is bad. It's just they had other priorities. They had other stuff going on, they had other offers, and partially because they were only selling these things for $15. If a big project came up that was significantly more, or if something else came up in life, you're going to want to cancel that $15 workshop much more easily than if it's a $150 workshop, which you're going to show up for and do a good job. So I share that. And again, it's not that other person's not bad at what they do or did a bad thing or whatever. They just had different priorities. But I was still able to have my class, even though my credentials were so much less impressive, but I had focus. I really wanted to do it. I was offering something different. I talked about things differently, and I was dedicated to doing the classes, and I wanted to do them sustainably. And because of that, mine has kept going this whole time, whereas the other one has been very sporadic. So I'm just using that as an example for, yes, somebody could find a class somewhere else, of course, but how you offer something, how you talk about it, what you give, that is going to resonate differently with some students. And they are going to get those concepts in a way they might not be able to get. Because I'll tell you, if they go take a $50 class somewhere that's like a multi-week class that's self-study, some people are not even going to touch it. They're not going to do it at all. They're going to get nothing out of it. Whereas what you have to offer might give them exactly what they need. So they do it and they get the results and they feel better or they learn more. And maybe your class was more expensive, but they actually did it and got what they wanted. That's 1,000 times more valuable than some Udemy $10 course that just sits and is never watched. So I totally understand this worry. And part of getting around it is thinking about what you have to offer that's even the slightest bit different. But there will always be a million things, and there will always be a million courses. So yours can be one of them. The last part I'll share about this, one of the things that really spurred me on was I took somebody else's class that was a totally self-study class, like all text, not even videos. And it turned out that person was, I thought he'd been like a copywriter for ages and blah, blah, blah. It turned out the person was 26 and had been a copywriter for 1 year, and they made a class. And you know what? The class was helpful, but I was like, God, I've been doing this for 5 fucking years. I thought I didn't have enough experience, you know? And so that I was like, man, I am tired of letting people like that beat me to the post. You know, you all have the experience. You all know what you're talking about. And somebody out there is going to have 2 months of experience and put out a class, and don't let them take your students and waste their money. Yours is going to be so much better. So I know that was just a ton that I went through, but now I'm going to stop the share. And sorry, I'm just trying to like get this off of full screen. This has been so finicky lately. Okay, good. All right. So now I want to like really get to any questions. So I'm going to go through the chat and see any questions from before. And now I would like to open it up to just, I know it's weird, but just like anything, any kind of questions you have about this, even if it's in particular to your own course, even if you think it's going to be too specific just to you, that's fine. I would love to ask. Okay. Okay, I'm just going. Oh, Lisa brought up a great point. Credentials never predict the ability of the teacher. That's the truth. I think many of us have had professors who seemed like they just wanted to be in a coffin rather than talking about what they're talking about. And that is not helpful at all. Excellent. I love it. Autumn, how do you decide what to charge for your class? This is the hard part of it. So you do want to look at the market a little bit, but you don't have to let the market completely decide for you. So when I say look at the market, I mean, looking at other similar writing classes and what they charge. But there are so many places that really undercharge. Now, some of those places can do that because they have a very high volume of students, so they can charge less and it's not a big deal. They still make money. You're not going to have a high volume of students at first. So if you charge really low, what you're going to do is still not attract that many more students. You might be then resentful every time you show up because you're getting underpaid. And it makes it harder for you to have enough money to keep doing this. So you want to look at what's out there. You want to think about what value does your class give. So if you have any kind of class that leads to a monetary benefit of your student, you definitely get to charge a little bit more because it's simply an investment that can literally pay off. If it's something that's purely creative and exploratory, it might be slightly cheaper, but they are still getting a lot of value from it. So look around at what's out there, then think what feels comfortable to you. Then for all of you, based on the people that come to my stuff, like add $50 to $100 to that, because we'll all want to undercharge and feel bad about charging anything. But making sure it's just enough that you are happy to be there is incredibly important. Remember, you're not taking money out of anybody's pocket. They can go find something cheaper. It's totally fine. And if you charge, and again, I'm not saying charge crazy amounts for no reason, but charge just that little bit more, it also makes it more meaningful to you and the student. Sometimes people do charge so little that I might look at that and go, well, it's probably bad then. Like, oh, this class is $30, like for a 4-week class. I'd go like, it's probably not a very good class then, or the teacher must like not be involved at all. So you can kind of be undercutting yourself by doing it. So that's what I can say. And then Autumn, in a minute, after I get to a couple more questions, if you want to ask more specifically about what you might do, I'm happy to talk more about that. And yeah, and then a lot of times people, when they, like I do free classes and I do them on purpose. Free classes are also a great way to get people onto your email list and give them a taste of what you do. Because I do a free class, I get a bunch of people, and then I pitch something at the end of it, usually my next class or workshop, and some people sign up and take it. If they don't take it, that's fine. They still got a class worth of stuff that was interesting and helpful to them. And then they know if they really like it or not, they're going to be more likely to want to invest in my class. So that's another tip there. That Autumn was just asking about. But also then there's the skin in the game, which Patrick talked about. So for free classes, like 30% of people will actually show up to it, which makes total sense. It's free, like I've signed up for free stuff and totally forgot about it. And that's what happens. The same thing will kind of happen if you do a $20 class. Some people might go, yeah, whatever, and just skip it entirely. When you're just getting up to not where it's crazy expensive or unrealistic, but where it's just like, okay, I'm paying $100, or even I'm paying $75, or it's a class I'm paying $500 or $800 or $1,000 for it. It's more likely they're going to then want to show up. And by them showing up, that's what's going to get them all the wonderful benefits of your class. So that's the other part of it to think about. Yeah, Autumn, I absolutely use free taster workshops to capture new audiences. And I want to be clear, it's not like I invented this at all. It's just like a webinar funnel is another way some people call it. But I love it because I like teaching live and I like doing workshops. So to me, it's just like a perfect way to sell something because again, I know the student is going to get something helpful if they show up. I'm not going to bullshit them and just waste their time. But also I couldn't give everything in one little workshop anyway. So then if they want to learn more, they have a way to do it. So it's just a good way to get in new people. And also then as they like stay on your email list or stay following you on social media, they got a really big taste of what it's like to be around you. And either they went, oh my God, get the fuck out of here, and they leave and that's fine. Or they're like, oh, I can't take the class now, but I really liked Amber's style. I really liked how Autumn put that. Yeah, she's going to be on my radar, as opposed to simply just seeing a post of like, oh, there's a writing class. Maybe I'll check it out. They've had this much fuller experience. How would you describe the tech elements of what you're doing right now? Yeah, Diana, great. So what I'm doing right now is I have a microphone. I have a Yeti microphone, but for a long time I just used the microphone on my headphones. So I'm telling you the literal tech is I have Zoom that I pay for, which is like $150 a year. Some kind of headphones with a microphone. And then Canva is where I did my slides. You could also use Google Slides. That there's a paid version, but you could do that for free. So what I'm doing then is just sharing my slides and then answering the chat afterwards. Usually I can do them more at the same time, but Zoom's being a little weird. So that's the tech I have literally going right now. For if you were going to do a live workshop that somebody paid for, you could have this exact same setup. And then you don't even have to have anything else but a place to put your video. So let's say you all paid to come here today. Well, then I would need to give you a recording because some people would want to be here but can't because of timing, right? So then I've recorded this. Then what I'm going to do is actually just put it on YouTube, unlisted. So then it's on YouTube. You send them that unlisted link so not everybody can see it. And then that's all the tech you need to like do a live workshop. If you're going to do a multi-week class, it is helpful to have a platform to host your videos. So I use New Zenler. You can use Teachable. There's a lot of options, but then that way it looks more like a class so the students can follow along more easily. You break it up into lessons. You can just host all of your stuff there. And I do recommend getting that if you want to do a multi-week class. But it's great to start with one-off workshops. So you can just have a free workshop and just see if people are interested and not sell anything, but build up your list, build up your audience. You could do a free workshop that leads to a paid workshop, which is what I just did on Tuesday. Anybody who was in my Tuesday one, that's exactly what it was, a bunch of free stuff. And then, hey, do you want to keep doing this? Here's another paid workshop you can take. And if you're doing those paid workshops, you just need an email server like MailChimp or ConvertKit or something like that. And you can just use YouTube for free. Just make sure the link is unlisted. That's all you need to get started. And Diana, too, if you have more questions, let me know. And yeah, the platform I use is called New Zenler. I use it because it's the cheapest, but not just because it's the cheapest. It's actually, I really like it. It's not quite as pretty as some of the other platforms, but it has all the things that I need and posts it well. I don't know. I've just not heard people sway me onto another platform, and it's still much more affordable than others. Again, you don't need to get that right away. But if you're thinking about doing a class, I suggest it. Yeah, so that's my hosting platform recommendation. Yeah, what other tech tools do I use now and how much do they cost? Excellent. So I do use paid Canva just because it has more features and I'm not a very good designer. So I do use that. I use paid Canva. That's about $150 a year. Paid Zoom, that's $150 a year. I use Squarespace Business. I feel like a little bit more, but it has more features. For my website, that is, I think it's going up to like $220 a year. And I use New Zenler, which is for $47 a year for me. I got it as a beta thing. It's $600 something if you for the whole year for new users, and they have monthly payment options. And ConvertKit. ConvertKit's the most expensive. I have 7,000 subscribers. So I need to look it up. It's something closer to like $800 a year. So all those, so the first 1,000 on ConvertKit are free. So you won't have that. You don't need to get paid Canva. You don't even need to have the New Zenler platform right away. The things you need right away are Zoom. I would say you have to have paid Zoom for it to work. So that's $150. Your website, which is, $220, and then some kind of email server, which will be either free or you can also do it monthly. And I think ConvertKit starts after 1,000 at like $19 a month. So you can kind of get things up and running for like around $500-ish. Then as you're making a little more, you can put it into a few more of the tools to use. And I do think, again, eventually a course platform is a good one to put money aside for. But that's it. For recording the courses, I use my iPhone. I did get, I'm gonna later on send you guys a link with all of this. It might be a couple days. I do have a little microphone I just plug into the phone and attach to my shirt that was not, it was like, I don't know, it was under $40. But yeah, I just use my phone, and that you can even use I'm just using the camera on my computer right now. You can even use that. It's not quite as good, but you can totally do it. That's another thing is might think video quality has got to be like super high for online classes. And I've seen they never are. It's not hard. How do you record voiceover with slides? So Canva Plus will actually let you do that. They have just a thing where it'll let you record, and then you just have your headphones or your microphone in, and you move the slides along as you want to keep going, and you do voiceover. I also edit my videos. I have a Mac, so I edit my videos in iMovie, which is just the free thing on the Mac. So that's one way to do it on Canva. There are another couple options. You can also use Loom. If you were going to record your whole class with Loom, you would need a subscription to that, which is also about $150 a year. How did I decide the curriculum for my courses? So I think it's great to start first with what you want to do. What do you think is missing? What do you like to cover? What do you find the most helpful? Then branch it out a little bit to what people need to know. So it can help to do interviews with people who might be interested in your class. You can just say, hey, I'm thinking about offering classes. These are totally free. I would just love to talk to some people who are interested in whatever kind of writing you do. Then you can hear the actual problems they're dealing with, and hearing all of that is going to be helpful for creating any copy you use to sell your class and help you put that stuff in there. So that's what I do. Also, I do think it's kind of nice to maybe try something with a paid workshop, a one-off. So that way you get to kind of consolidate your own thoughts, see who's interested, see that there is interest in it. You also then get all the questions they ask, and then you can go from there and create a longer course, and you have all that information. How much writing experience did somebody have before teaching a class? You should have some. There's all kinds. So like, if you're like, I just started writing yesterday, I think I'm going to start a class. No, but I don't know. There's no hard rule. There's no hard rule to it, because you could be doing it for all your life, because you've probably been writing all your life, maybe not getting paid for it. It's like, what do you have to offer? Do you feel like I always think this and it helps me, and I don't hear anybody talk about that? Or whenever I go into a class, I don't like that we do this, this, and this. I think we could do it this other way, and it might be easier. If you're kind of having those ideas, then you're probably in a place where a class would be fine. I have a degree in theater from Hunter College. That is the end. I have an associate's degree from the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I don't have any fancy shit like that. And then people have said my class is better than an MFA, which is very kind. But you know what I mean? Like, the official shit of it is, it's what you have to offer. That's what's interesting. Isabel, do you think volume is key with enrollment to make it profitable? Will you ever not run a class if enrollment is too low? Or do you think that might hook people, so worth running it anyway? So a little bit of volume is definitely key, but it doesn't have to be crazy volume. You can start a class with 5 people, even 4 people, and doing it. So it's very rare I would ever not. Actually, I had my very first multi-week class. I had 2 sessions of it, a Saturday and a Thursday. And my Saturday session was full, but my Thursday session just had 1 person in it. And I still taught the class. I let them know. I was like, hey, for whatever reason, everybody signed up for Saturday. I'm still going to teach it because it helped me solidify my ideas. And yeah, it got that person interested. Then I also got a testimonial from that person. That person got a story published, so I could talk about that. So it's still worth doing. And know that a class doesn't necessarily take off immediately. Often the first ones are smaller, but over time, because they tell people and you get better at marketing and all that stuff, it's still very helpful to do it. So aiming for like immediate profitability is a good way to break your own heart, because no matter what, these things just take a little bit of time to build up. That's also part of why you want to charge a little bit more at the beginning, because if you charge nothing and make nothing, you're going to be sad when you show up for the class. Even if it's a lower number, but you charge, you're like, okay, well, this doesn't pay all my bills, but this is a decent chunk of money I got here. Then you're going to show up better. Those students are going to do better, and those students are going to tell their friends. Do you need to have writing in major publications before you begin teaching classes? Not necessarily. You just need to have like some real experience to pull from, or something you really have to offer. I didn't have my New York Times credit when I started this. I got that after I started teaching the class. And part of it was like, I want to have a bigger credential. So it motivated me to pitch the New York Times a lot more, So now I did have a lot of experience writing in a lot of other places. So again, if you're going to teach about getting published, if you're going to teach how to get published in the New York Times, you need to be published in the New York Times. But if you're like, just teach it, maybe you have a writing schedule you've stuck to for a year. A lot of people would love to know more about that. Maybe you're just teaching about that, and the credential you have is the fact that you've done it successfully. So that's where it can be really back and forth. Oh yeah, sorry, let me get this. New Zenler is the thing. Okay, I love these questions. I'm gonna do what I just said and give you a quick offer I have, and then I'll get to the rest of the questions. If you have to leave after that, I understand, because I'm going to be going a little long with the questions, but you will get the recording, so I am going to be sure to answer them. If you can stay on long, I'll go until all the questions are over. So real quick, I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, thank you for sharing. The sharing process is so slow. That's okay. So like the biggest thing to know from all of this is like, it's not simple. It's not easy running your own class, but I will tell you, just for me, I really fucking love it. Like I really, really do. I love my students. I love teaching it. It's been fun, and it has been great. It's just been very good for me. And it is easier when you are not doing this all by yourself, because as you can see, there are so many just little questions, not hard things, but just little things to know to get started. So just if you're interested in learning this more, and again, I'm still going to get to the questions you already have, but if this is something you're really interested in, I'm doing this just for Black Friday. This is a coaching package about building and selling your own writing class. So it's not going to be a workshop, actually. It's not a public course. It's going to be private sessions. So we get a 1-hour session to map out what your course idea could be, what you have to offer, getting through your biggest worries about it. I will tell you the tech to get. I mean, you can always choose your own, of course, but I'll give you those actual things and set up a basic marketing plan so you can start to build your audience without feeling like a jerk. Then we also get a 1-hour follow-up session the following month to say what happened. Have you been doing it? What's been hard? What's going on? And that's the way we make sure that your class idea doesn't stay in an abandoned Google Doc. It actually gets done. In between, then you get unlimited support for 4 weeks. So if you want to run a title by me, you want to run anything by me, where should you share your class? This tech thing won't stop sucking. You just email me and I get back to you. And also, this is a new offer. So I know I'm going to add something else to it, but it'll be based on what people need. So there will be at least one pre-recorded video training to solve the most common problems. And since it's one-on-one, you get to use all the time for yourself and only get the advice that you need to get started and start selling your course. You won't have to spend any time on training that's not applicable to you, and you schedule them yourself. So you schedule them, you can easily change them if you need to. Also, if you are not seeing an option that works for you, just email me and I will work it out. But yeah, you don't have to like come to a workshop on a certain day. You get to schedule it around your own life. And I just wanted, so I get testimonials like this from people like Risa, which is so lovely. Like, and that's not, I didn't expect to get testimonials like this, but just because I am doing this on my own and putting my own personality into it, you end up having students that are then so much happier than like the same kind of old class that everybody does, you know? And think about it, think about honing your writing skills with students you like. I had a chance of some pretty good money. I included a picture of me in Godspell in high school, just for a laugh. And usually this is $300 this month coaching package, but for Black Friday, it's only $199. So that is 2 coaching sessions. It's unlimited support. It's Marco said when he worked with me, stuff seems so simple when I do it with you. So that's what it is. It's just that support to get this moving. Now, you don't have to schedule your sessions before November 28th, not at all. That's just when the sale is going. You could buy your session and schedule it for March if you felt like it. You could schedule it for December. You could schedule it for next week. It's whatever works for you. But the first session just has to be purchased to get that deal by the 28th. So you can go to amberpetty.com/teaching to sign up. And yeah, if you get that by November 28th, it's only $199. And this is the thing I say at the end of all mine. You can keep thinking about it. There's magic in doing it. The first time I put out my very first free workshop, I got then an offer to do a voiceover job out of the blue. I got an offer to do this other writing thing. I got all these other random offers that came my way simply because I like put it out there. And I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but just when you start like really committing to this and putting it out there, even if the class doesn't go exactly as you planned, just lovely little things start to happen. So I always say that that's no matter if you get the coaching package or not, that's just doing anything here. So it's amberpetty.com/teaching if you're interested in that package. And now we will get back to our questions. Oh, goodness. There we go. Okay, back to questions. And feel free to put more stuff in here. I'm happy to keep talking about it. Okay. Stephanie. I'm at the point where half the students of classes I teach reach out after class to thank me for teaching the class and tell me that I should be charging more. I want to keep the cost affordable because writers starting out usually don't have much money, so I'm uncertain what to charge. Yeah, and I was Stephanie just talking. So I know Stephanie, and I was just talking to my husband about this. I was like, she needs to charge more. So this is like the eternal question because we're not assholes, you know? We know that writers aren't typically a pool of people just swimming in cash. And a lot of our classes are aimed at people starting out. So part of it is reminding yourself the stuff you paid for and have paid for, whether it's bullshit, you know, like the time I got a fucking $100 makeup palette because I wanted it, or when it was classes that I took. Stephanie, I know you've done this. You've taken improv classes. Was that going to lead to cash? No, but you took them anyway. I did. I took tons of improv classes, and there's lots of value from that too, as much as I love to make fun of it. But that, you know, people found the money. And this is actually a fun story for everybody. So like I taught at UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. In the recession, they couldn't sell enough courses. Like they could have had unlimited classes. They got so many sales for improv classes during the last recession. So that's not something I would have thought. I don't think anyone would have thought, but it's true. So you're offering, so Stephanie teaches about pilot writing and getting an agent like for TV and movies. That's a thing that pilot writing, there's lots of classes like that, but how you teach it is very helpful. And that's a skill they need to have in order to have the job they want. And then getting an agent is something that can literally pay off for them immensely, immensely. So especially when you've been around people that really don't have much money, which I've been that person. There's nothing wrong with any of that. We just think we have to offer it for so little. And like, that's just not actually going to help. It's not going to help your students in the future because you're not going to keep doing this if you keep getting paid so little. So part of it is at what price feels crazy? Okay, don't do that. What price feels good? If you could just say, well, if I could make this much per class, then I'd show up for it a little more excited. Think of what that number is and play with it from there. See if you want to raise it a tiny bit from there, or if that feels just still too high for you, turn it down just a little bit. But it's always going to feel bad at first, but then also remind yourself what you are giving people. You know, my freelance writing class is $800. That's not a cheap class, but what I'm giving in the class is a lot of things. A lot of people make money from the class. They get support they don't get in almost any other class. So if somebody needs a cheaper class, they can find one lots of other places, and that's totally fine. But if they want what I do best, it's got to be just a little bit more because otherwise I'm not going to be able to have a business and I'm not going to be able to give the support that I like to give. So it's hard sometimes to say, well, then also short answer, Stephanie, charge at least $99 for your workshop for you in particular, but something for everybody to think of there. Pricing is very hard. But remember, you're not stealing it from them. If somebody writes you and says, hey, I'm so sorry, just don't have money right now, but I would absolutely love to take this, you could always give it to them. You know, there's lots of things that you can do, but tailoring it just because you feel bad just winds up not being that helpful to you and the students. Renata, how long did it take you from getting the idea of teaching to launching to automating? Yeah, so mine happened faster than I thought. So I'm trying to think of the exact timeline. Getting the idea of teaching I had, and then I because I was like, because in my story, I was like, it was during the pandemic, all these actors and stuff I knew were out of work. And I was like, there are these writing jobs and other jobs people can do that I feel like so many actors just don't know about. So I was like, maybe I could do like a little class about other kind of side jobs you can have that aren't terrible for actors. And at the end, I will sell coaching almost identical to what I did today. Because if I don't sell anything, I'm going to be annoyed that I did a class for totally free because I don't know what I'm doing with this. But if I sell something, it just helps me see if this is interesting to people. I can learn more, all that kind of stuff. So I did those a couple of times and got like 17 people signed up. And then from there, I was like, oh, they really just want to learn about freelance writing from me. And that's what I actually want to talk about more. So I developed a workshop and sold that and got more information and did a 4-week class and got information. Now I did that kind of fast. So it was like from August was the first free class. And then the 4-week class I did ended in December. So it was that timeline. And then by mid-January of that following year is when I launched my first major class I have now that is pretty much all the videos I still am using. So that was my timeline. And I went a little fast. Now I did have a full-time job at the time and I was still writing freelance articles. I also don't have kids though. So those are things to keep in mind, but I would say that's a short-ish time frame. You could definitely offer a workshop within a month for sure. If you want to, I would give yourself 4 months-ish to do it. The other thing I'll say is I sold my idea before I built my whole class every time. So I knew what I wanted to talk about. I had an outline and it was based on experience and all that stuff, but I hadn't made all my videos. I hadn't done any of that until I sold it. So the first time I ran that class, I did my free workshop, sold it from there, sold it through emails. And then I was basically recording the class the week before it was live. So I was like just running right behind the class as it was going out. You can also run the class live, record those workshops, and then next time use those recordings and have that be automated. So that's another really good thing. If you're doing a one-off workshop, that you kind of prepare in advance and do live is best. But for any other kind of class, sell it before you've built the whole thing. Again, know what you're going to do, know what you want to offer, have it laid out for yourself, but don't record all those videos. Because then, yeah, if you're like, okay, 2 people signed up and I'd have to make all this, you can say, never mind, and refund them. Or a bunch of people sign up, great, I'm now very excited to do all my videos, and you get them done. When you want to do everything in advance, it's really easy to just put it off and never finish it. But when you've sold it, you're going to get it done. So that's kind of my time frame. Oh, Patrick, for New Zenler, I went with Pro, the cheaper one. I don't use the premium. Ellen, I have a business mentor, great with tech, motivated to have own business. Awesome. Special subject matter. Hospital pharmacist. Cool. He recommended offering a beta course with reduced cost to develop the courses rather than created the course before and nobody came. Yeah, so sorry. I kind of just answered that a little bit. Also, doing a beta round is great because that can also just help you feel a little better. So some people can, like, I felt fine offering my class because I kind of did a beta round with the workshops and the short class. So by the time I got to my full length class, I was like, yeah, I'm sure I'll add some things and whatever, but I was still pretty confident about it. I had no qualms selling it before it was created. But if you're like, I'm just not quite sure, or I do want to test things out a little bit, then yeah, absolutely. Offer a beta round that's a little cheaper and do that. Don't offer the whole course for free. You're not going to get the same engagement. You're not going to show up for it the same way. You're not going to learn as much. Also, don't offer it for like $10. It's totally cool to give a discount, but still make it enough so that it's worth your effort. You're working. But yes, I think that's a totally good idea. Oh, Audrey said you can also use PowerPoint to do that. Great. Rowena, do you have to put in months of work to build your list profile before you start making income from your courses? You do have to put some time into your list. So yeah, if you have no following at all and you're like, here's my course, it's not going to sell very much. But that's where you can kind of get a 2 birds with 1 scone, as someone in my class said, which was very sweet. You can do that by doing the live free classes. So that's where, even if you don't have something to sell, if you're saying, hey, I have this free class on blah, 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 and then you put that in Facebook groups where people might be interested, you post about it, you email it to people individually who might be interested, you can look at other places to advertise, or you don't even have to advertise, but even just sharing it there, then people are going to be interested in that, sign up, and now they're on your mailing list. So you're both starting to develop your workshops and you're growing your list at the same time. I had about 250 people on my list when I sold my first paid workshop that again made about $2,000. I had like a little over 1,000 or 1,300, something like that, on my list when I sold my first full class, where the class was $550 at the time, and I made about $15,000 off of that launch from that many email subscribers. So that's not exactly how the math always works out by any means, but you do need to grow your list. That is a big part of it. And for everybody, like marketing time, like now that my courses are more completed, I spend much more time marketing than course things, even though I do have a lot of delivery on my course to do. But marketing type of stuff, that's where the time is spent the most. And I know that sucks, but that's just kind of the truth of it. Deborah, is a landing page on its own website, or can you have one website with multiple landing pages? Deborah, you can have a website with multiple landing pages. If you use something like Teachable or New Zenler, I can set up like the sales page through their system, and I either just link to it to my emails, or I direct to it from my regular website. But yeah, you could have one website with multiple landing pages. Lighting for videos, Diana, great. I use mostly windows. So like right now I'm just sitting in front of a window. So a window is good. And sometimes I would use a window and a ring light. Now I have glasses, so a ring light isn't great because then you just see the huge reflection in the glasses. But honestly, a window is sometimes all you need. So I would do window or one ring light. You do not need to get super fancy. Don't do it in the dark. Don't do it where you're facing your back to the window. But a window is really enough. Now, also, I'm very pale, so I need less light than other people do. I know that sounds silly, but it's actually really true. But a single ring light can be like $20. Just start there, or a window. Honestly, that's all I do. Wonderful. Yay, Stephanie, I teach through schools and things. In my head, it looks better than like, here's my Venmo, but they're taking such a high percentage and they'd almost never promote it. Do you think the Venmo PayPal link is something in my head? Is there a visually pleasing way to pay that you recommend? Stephanie, yes, because you're right. It's not that here's my Venmo is like shitty, but it's an extra step that students want to do. So when you only have a thing that's like, hey, email me for a link to the class or email me about the class. Well, now they have to remember to do that. They've got to send an email. They've got to compose the email. They have to send it to you. Those are all little steps that are going to get in the way. Venmo, I've got to find what your Venmo thing is. I've got to do it. I don't recommend using Venmo at all if you can avoid it. Now, when you have a setup that's just like, hey, you're interested in my class, you can email me. If you want to sign up, here's a link and you sign up right there. If you have Squarespace, that's why I recommend the Squarespace Professional, because it also has Acuity calendar links in it. So actually, you can see exactly what it looks like. So even if you're not interested in coaching, you can check this out. So if you go there on the teaching page, I then have a page where I talk a little bit about what the offer is. That's just a Squarespace page. And then if they click sign me up, it goes to Acuity, where you can then pick, your time and you pay for it right there. And they will pay for it through Stripe or PayPal. Stripe is very easy to set up on your end. It's not hard. So that's helpful. And for a class, you can set up an Acuity, a class thing. So they won't pick out their time individually. They would just have the class option, click on that and give their money. So I think having that set up is way better. And Venmo, yeah, Venmo is a pain. But yeah, so I think that little bit of a setup, it's just one Squarespace page, click to Acuity. Like that's all you need to get started. Then later, if you had, like New Zenler, Teachable, whatever, then you would have either a page on your website or a page through New Zenler that's talking about your class. Then they click on that and they check out through Zenler and it's all in there. Great. Oh, Rachel, I love this. Remember, I logged on kind of meh, but I'm signing up. Oh, that's like the best testimonial. I could ever receive. And again, I know I'm going very late, so I really appreciate this. But I really do want to, I mean, this is much more for like, I just want some people to know how they can do classes. Yeah, GR, you can also do sliding scale. Now, GR, it's absolutely fine to do sliding scale, but I will say it ends up not being that helpful either. Like I've taken stuff, because also think about it from the end of the customer. So I've had some things where they're like, okay, you could pay $10, $20, $50 for the class. And there are some times where I only had $10, I pay that, whatever, not feel bad. Also, sometimes I'd pay $10, but feel shitty about it. Or sometimes I'd go, I know I could pay $10, but she deserves 50, so I'm not going to sign up. This makes me feel shitty and poor and bad. I've had other ones where I've been like, look, I have the money, but I'd rather just pay $10, but I should pay 50 because I do have the money. It just makes this extra question for the customer, which isn't really that helpful for them either. So you can definitely give away scholarships if you want. And you can also, that's the other good part about free classes is like, hey, I'm giving you this free thing with information. You don't ever have to pay me. And I've had students get published from free classes they've taken from me. So like, I always have that. So I'm always giving something for people that can't afford it. But I'm sorry, like if you want to save a bunch of time and get the personal time of somebody, money's involved. And it's absolutely fine if you don't have that now. There are still ways I can help you and ways a billion other people can help you. But my time is worth something. We live in a capitalist world. So at a certain point, you just have to pay. So you can absolutely do sliding scale, but I've done pay your own, like pay what you want. And I just feel like you just end up not feeling great about it. Because then you get people paying $1 and then you're like, my time is worth a fucking dollar. You know, it just doesn't help. Do you worry about retaining students and creating new offerings, excuse me? So Isabel, I only do new offerings for stuff I like. So like I was like, I kind of want to teach about teaching. So I whipped this up. I did the newsletter one, same deal. I'm going to do like an extended perfectionist challenge thing because that was interesting to me. And I saw it was kind of something my students were interested in, but I don't have like level 1, level 2, level 3. I just have my main class. And then if they want other things, that's cool. So there are definitely other ways to do this. And I'm sure there's optimized ways you could do, but I'm not as interested in retaining my students as in getting them to keep paying me more. I love keeping them on my list, keeping them involved in things, keeping in touch, because I like it. And also, hey, they'll probably announce my free class or say something nice about it. You know, that's only going to help. So it's more about getting in new people than it is about continuing to serve the same people and I think that's true for a lot of classes. So you don't have to continue to make a million offers. You could really just recycle this stuff and then do the new things as you find new things you want to add or start to find gaps. Or if there is a level 2 for your class that really makes sense, that's totally fine for you to create that. But you don't have to start with a million pieces. Just starting with one will be more easy and more successful than you might think. How many hours a week do you feel like you're spending assessment student writing offline? So this class is, 70-ish people, and they're really active, which is excellent. So I am spending a little more time than usual. I would say for this class in particular, I'd probably say 10 hours a week assessing stuff. And then, but also I do the class live thus far twice a year. I'm not doing it all the time, all year round. So it's around that many hours. I don't keep track of it well because it's like fun to do. So then I forget, I forget about the time. Awesome. Let's see. Also, if marketing and networking isn't your thing, then charging a higher price can help hiring support. Deborah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, for clarity on that, I did have somebody who was doing Facebook ads for me for a while, though I've stopped doing that. I did pay for a lawyer place to set up the LLC because I didn't want to figure it out on my own. I pay for somebody to do my taxes at the end of the year. And then I've paid little one-off things, but I don't have an assistant and I don't have anybody that's on payroll regularly. Just letting you know, but this is my full-time job. So just if that helps. Excellent. Oh, Squarespace. So, and you'll see this pop up if you like go to use it, Patrick. Squarespace Stripe is the payment processor. And Stripe is free to set up. They take a like 3% cut. Any payment processor takes a cut. So yeah, Acuity and Stripe are the payment options. Cool. Awesome. Okay, I know we're going late. Anything else? Any other little questions before we go? And you'll get some emails from me as well. But if something comes up, please just ask me a question at amber@amberpetty.com. If you have any questions about the coaching, if you're curious if it would be good for you or not, I'll be really honest with you about it. So just let me know about that. And that's it. All right, wonderful. I hope everybody has a lovely day. I will talk to lots of you soon. Bye.